that you go through and read it. I'm just going to take you through briefly what it is, and then I want you to go look at it on your own. Just go to Google and type in Berkshire Hathaway 2024 annual report, and it'll pull that up there. Now, remember, we are going to be doing and going through the annual meeting on Saturday, the 3rd, 6:30 Mountain Time AM, and then at 8:30 Philippine, 9:30 in Japan. And so we'll be using the same link that we're having here. But what I want to do is I want to talk to you just for a second about how you find it and a little bit about the annual report itself. So one thing about Buffett, he says that the only thing that really changes on the cover is the color. So he's been writing this report for decades. And I just want to just kind of give you a quick overview of some of the pieces in it. But the big one right here is the annual letter. This is his letter, and he says that when I write this letter, it's like I'm writing it to my older sister who is not into finance, and I want to make it as simple as possible so that my sister can understand it. And I think that's just smart. I think that's just really, really smart the way he does that. Okay, so then there is the performance. This is the big one, the performance. How does it perform versus the S&P 500? And again, the S&P 500 outperforms mutual funds who beats picking and choosing. It's amazing when people get a little money why they think that they have to go trade it instead of doing something else with it. Okay, so that's the first part of it here. And then what we're going to do is we're just going to just big chunks right here. One of the interesting things about Buffett is that he just tells you the way it is. Mistakes, yes, we make them at Berkshire. So he talks about some of the mistakes that they've made, and he's got an awful lot of great information. Right here he talks a little bit about Charlie Munger right here. Decent batting average is the cardinal sin is delaying and not taking action. Okay, well, he's talking about that. Sometimes, one of the great things that they've been doing this for so long that they've got companies that make money, and they do make mistakes, but they learn from those mistakes. And sometimes you just got to make the best decision you can with what you've got. Talks about some of the players that's in here that he's talking about here. And then they kind of go through what's in our company. What do we do here? So here's last year's performance. Did better than expected. 53% of our 189. They have 189 operating businesses reported decline in earnings. So that kind of tells you what's going on in the marketplace. So they've got 189 operating businesses that make money. So half of them did well. They didn't really have a decline. But that's just kind of a snapshot of what's going on in the world. Talks a little bit about the utility businesses because they own lots of utility companies, which are steady. Everybody's got to have power. That he likes that kind of stuff. Talks about the operating earnings of it. So here's one of their big ones is the insurance. The insurance company, Berkshire Hathaway, was a mill, a textile mill that he bought into, and the name was Berkshire Hathaway. It was two different textile companies that merged together, and he took the profits from that and he liquidated most of the stuff, and then what he did was he invested in other things, and one of the biggest ones is insurance. And so one of the big insurance companies is the Geico Insurance. And what he loves about insurance is that he brings all these premiums in, and then he takes those premiums and he can invest them. And so he's got like free money. So he's talking about that. Kraft Heinz is a big portion of what they've got. Occidental Petroleum is a big portion of what they own. Let's talk a little bit about Charlie here. One of the things that Charlie really brought to the table was buying great businesses at a fair price, where Buffett was doing a lot more trading, looking for really, really cheap businesses. What he wanted to do is he says, let's go buy the best businesses at great prices when the market's unfavorable to them. Let's go the other direction and buy the great ones. And so he loves it when there's a crisis. Says they paid $26 billion in taxes last year. Well, I don't feel so bad about all the taxes I paid, but they paid a lot in taxes. And because it's a stock, you don't have to claim any of that. The value of your stock goes up or down, and you don't have a taxable event until you sell, which is pretty awesome. Um, Talks about dividends, why they don't do dividends. They like companies that give them money. They just don't like giving money out because they're making a better rate of return on it. Talks about where your money is. Berkshire's equity activity is ambidextrous. They own 100% of 189 subsidiaries. They own 100% of 189 businesses. And then they own percentages of Coca-Cola, Apple, American Express, and all these other companies, and they own that in stock. So they outrightly own 189 businesses that they bought that make money, and then they own stock in a lot of these other ones. And the guy who's talking about is Greg Abel. Greg Abel is going to take over when Buffett retires, but he'll still be there. Buffett's son Howard will be the chairman of the board to keep the a lot of the similar things that have been happening before. Talks a little. I mean, this is something you just definitely need to go read. Talks a lot about what's going on in America right here. There's your property and casualty, big into insurance companies. They like insurance companies. And again, they like insurance companies because they have all this revenue that comes in that they don't have to do anything with. And all the other stuff that they're investing in here. Invest in a lot of Japanese stuff. They do some Chinese stuff. Talks a little bit about the Omaha gig. And then here's the big one right here, what we talked about earlier is how they done versus the S&P 500, which is pretty amazing. So they've averaged 19% over the time that they've had it. They've averaged about 14% over the last, 13% over the last 25 years, and probably 10 or 12% over the last 15, 16 years. And then, of course, it just talks about what's going on. This is some of the debt that they've got. So they've got well, this is way deeper than you probably want to go, but now it goes into all the different businesses. Here's the businesses, goes into great detail on the businesses. There's Geico Insurance. That's one of their big ones, one of their favorite ones right there. They're a big insurance company. They love insurance. Insurance groups, stuff like that. Burlington Northern is the big railroad that they own. Berkshire Hathaway Energy. So they like utility companies, just solid energy companies. An idea of some of the other big stuff that they own. There's some non-energy businesses, home services businesses, manufacturing. They do a lot of that kind of stuff too. Big businesses that are big. Lubrizol, big company. Marmon, big company that they bought. And a lot of these big owners of these companies, family built, they'll sell to Berkshire and get stock out of it so that they can do their estate planning. Clayton Homes, one of the biggest manufacturers of homes. They're prefab homes. Says they did 51,000 Clayton Homes. I'm guessing that's probably, oh gosh, let me see. In 2024, they built 50,000 homes. Wow. I mean, that's a lot. So these are players. Shaw Industries, John Mansfield, big company. Benjamin Moore's big paint company. Do apparel. They do Fruit of the Loom. He says everybody's got to wear underwear, so it might as well be the top into it. So we own that company. Pilot travel centers. These are the big truck stops, and there's 677 of them. Flying J, which is a huge company. And they own hundreds of these big old companies. Flight Safety Net Jets. Let's keep going through here. Berkshire Automotive, they bought some big automotive car dealerships. And they make more money off the finance than they do off of selling cars. See's Candy is a big one. They bought this one many, many years ago. See's Candy. They bought See's Candy years and years ago. And let me see, I'm gonna get back here. They bought it for $25 million, and See's Candy was making $5 million a year. So that was a big one right there. See's Candy was a big one that they've owned. That they've done probably $1 billion, made $1 billion off of it because they've owned it for so long, and then they've grown it. They've grown it. Dairy Queen, they own Dairy Queen. They want to own 1, 2, or 3 of the biggest franchises. Just more information, more info. Berkshire Hathaway Energy, it's just showing you here. Now we're going to go into utilities and what the capacities are. So these are big companies. These are big organizations that they own and control. Stock performance here, they really love insurance. Insurance is a high profitable company. And then it just shows you how they've done, you know. So you can dig into this and really understand business of how they do what they do. So basically, you know, as you think about Berkshire Hathaway, what it is that they own 189 standalone businesses, companies that have big operations. And then they've got a ton of money that they own big chunks of companies like Apple and stuff like that. And the biggest thing they did was he saw that the stock market was getting to be too expensive, that the price per earnings was getting up there, and he sold a lot of stuff and turned around and put it into cash. And they got $350 billion in cash. They're loving it right now. They're you know, with all the tariffs and all the stuff that's doing whatever, they have got an awful lot of cash on the side, and they're loving it. They like to see crashes. So they buy stuff on the cheap. That's what they do. So that's why we like Berkshire Hathaway so much, guys. That's kind of the big reason for we like Berkshire Hathaway. And again, I'm not telling you what to do with your money. I'm just telling you what we do with our money. And that's what we donated to the foundation to make it grow. So we'll see y'all on Saturday.